This was something that kind of caught my eye. You said in one of your videos that you have to embody the person that you want to become before it actually happens.
Exactly.
So, how can people do that while building the new habits? Because if a mind is very logical based, it's obviously going to want evidence that this is actually, who we are. So, say if I wanted a graphic designer for the sake of argument, but I have no physical evidence that I am a graphic designer. How cause how would I stay in that state of mind without my physical reality reflecting that? Because I kind of personally I struggle with that to stay in that mind frame where there's no evidence. But if we have to be it internally, but there's no external reinforcement, it kind of clashes, I want to say.
Exactly. So, it goes down to the vision, right? Even if we look at some successful people who've built businesses or companies, or some artists who created a masterpiece, they didn't have the masterpiece or the business already built to believe it, right? But what they all had vision. And the vision and belief in that vision was so strong, it carried them through the diversity and through the obstacles and through not having that evidence right away. I mean, the reality fabrics is made of energy, and you have to, before you're going to see that materializing for you, you have to charge it with that energy. And when you charge it enough with that energy, which is your thoughts, your feelings, your beliefs, over time it will take a material shape. Just like an artist, where does that masterpiece is born? In his head. It's his vision. Then it becomes palette and brushes and colors and canvas, and the canvas eventually turns into a masterpiece. But it's the vision that carries him through. It's the belief that what he's doing makes sense and it's going to be great, and it's going to portray or transmit his values or whatever he's trying to deliver to the audience, right? His vision. Same with the business, right? The person believes that his solution solves a problem, and it's only the belief that carries him through. And then he finds, based on that idea and the belief in that idea, he finds the sponsors, he finds the resources, he's able to communicate his vision to someone, because what are the investors do? They actually invest in the vision, right? And of course, some calculations, some analytics you have to prove. But at first, if it already exists and it's already successful, nobody probably would be looking for investors, right? But it's not there yet. It's like semi-raw. It's still just an energy, just a vision. So it's the same thing. You kind of have to understand that this is the vision, and it just takes a little time materialize. But energetically, everything exists at the same time. Everything that we can imagine means it already exists, and it exists here and now, because that's the only kind of moment that we have. So you have to connect to it energetically and keep believing that that's what you want, as long as it's your true desire. It's very important to segregate from like some desires that were influenced by other we were influenced by other people versus our true desires that come from our heart. But when they come from our heart, they actually come true the easiest. Then you'll have the energy when you're going to rehearse yourself as a great graphic designer. You're going to savor that moment. You're going to be inspired to take a course and learn a skill, because it's not just about visualizing, right? It's about taking action. But if the action does not have enough belief, if you're full of fears and doubts, obviously you're going to be like one step forward, two steps back. And that's why we need that awareness to make sure we have that strength to overcome the fears and doubts, and constantly focusing on the outcome that already exists. We're just connecting to that outcome from now.
I've said this on the show before, if you actually want something, but it's I think I've said this. If you actually want something, it's a lot easier because you tend to find that you try to talk yourself out of it. But if you don't want it, you try to talk yourself into it.
That's perfect.
Because a personal example, I tried to talk myself into a cinematography business that didn't last long, and I'm constantly trying to talk myself out of doing this podcast.
It's so interesting, Daniel, because I had a reel, and I said exactly that thing. And it's so interesting how not many people understand that idea. So I'm so stoked you actually get it too, like you understand it too, because that's also came from my own life analysis. I'm like, how do I know what's true, what's not? And then I looked back at some decisions that I make and what they led to, right? And I'm like, you know what? Those things that were really coming from my heart, I was trying to talk myself out of it because your immediate response never lies. Your immediate, you know, right away in the split second, you know, it's just right here. And then all of a sudden, when it's yours, but you understand it's illogical, it's just then the mind kicks in, right? And the mind, like, oh no, what about this? What about that? And so it starts infiltrating you with fears and doubts, and then so the logic starts to scare you and you try to talk yourself out of it. And vice versa. Sometimes there's like a little ick towards even greatest idea, right? But you're like just there was no butterfly in the beginning. But then all of a sudden you try to bargain with yourself. It's almost like you had this little friend chat and you're trying to convince it's not perfect, but it's good enough. It's not perfect, but it's safe. It's not perfect, but and it's like you're like it's your bargain. So when you bargain, that means it's probably not a good idea because now you're convincing yourself, you know. And I've tried it, and it's like human relationships, you know, when you meet somebody, whether romantically or friendships, like sometimes you like try and convince why this could be a good networking opportunity or a good friendship. And if the end, it turns out that your initial gut response was always accurate. And it's the same with the projects, same thing. It's like sometimes it looks so glamorous that logically you almost cannot say no, right? So you take the rational choice because other people would think you're crazy to say no. But then it doesn't really satisfy you at the end. It probably drains you greatly as well. Because I noticed that when you're walking out your path is the most draining path. Like it really, really takes up a lot of energy and time.